Welcome to the Market Mystics podcast, where we discuss what's happening in the cryptosphere and trading on Earth as it is in heaven. Buckle up and huddle on while we dive in and get weird. Here are your hosts, Joshua and Kim.
Good afternoon, evening, morning, whenever you happen to listen to this episode. Welcome to Mystic Monday. We have a fun episode for you guys today. We are going to be joined by a guest shortly. And I think it's going to be a great conversation about what Father is doing in the kingdom and how we can participate in it. But before we get there, we, as always, want to start with just some market updates and talk about some things. So, Kim, take it away.
Let's get to it. So Bitcoin is up about 0.75% over 24 hours, up 2.5% over 7 days, sitting pretty at 16,189. I guess pretty is all dependent upon your perspective, as we talk about quite a bit. Ethereum, the number 2 coin, is up about 1.25% over 24 hours, up 5.25% over 7 days. It's sitting at about $1,167 per coin. The biggest mover, we always like to talk about that, is Phantom, the FTM coin. It's number 71 by market cap, and it's this is a sad little number considering how crypto markets move. The biggest mover in 24 hours is up 8.2%, not even double digits, and up almost 20% over 7 days, sitting at a whopping 20 cents. Phantom is a super fast smart contract platform.
Amazing.
Was that a super fast market update? Because I feel like
it was. I think it was great. Do you want to, I know we're going to sort of intro the guest, but do you want to just tease that before we jump into it?
Sure. You guys, we have a super cool guest that will come on in just a few moments.
That's right.
No, we have, so there's been kind of a bit of a shift that we've been feeling just in our business and the podcast and our personal lives and all the things that we walk through individually and together. And one of those shifts has been to really reach out and get some more guests on the show, because I think we both really find value, kingdom perspective, find value in others' points of view on similar topics. So Rose, this is who our guest is. Rose is someone who is local, but she is known globally. She's kind of a big deal. She would never say she is. She's this amazing woman. You can't help but love her. We've known her for a few years, but she really is a remarkable human being, someone who loves the Father and knows him well. I don't know. Anything else you want to say about her?
No, I think that kind of sums it up. Well, without further ado, here we go. Thank you, listeners, for joining us today. We are joined by Rose Kaufman. She has been a friend of both Kim and I's for a few years. We've known each other through various ministries we've been involved in. And Rose is a pretty incredible woman who has lived an amazing life, has accomplished a lot already, and is doing just massive things for the kingdom. So we want to honor Rose for joining us tonight in this conversation. But Rose, how would you introduce yourself?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, Josh, Kimberly, thank you. Thank you guys for inviting me. The honor and the pleasure is all mine to spend this time with you guys and just unpacking some new things, right? And you guys have already done some amazing work your own self. And so it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be with you guys. So thank you. Thank you for the invite and thank you for the time. So, gosh, how would I introduce myself? Well, I'm an extrovert. And I get pretty excited about some things. And sometimes I can find myself in situations that, how did I get here? And I just know that Yahweh puts me in position to, do some things that maybe some other people wouldn't do, just because they're a little bit too calculated or, risk adverse or whatever. So I don't know really how I would describe myself other than, yes, I know some amazing, amazing people. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to know you guys. I'm so grateful to know some of the other people that I do and my mentors, because my mentors have seriously helped me along the way when I have those questions or when I've gotten myself in a thing and I need out. So, how about that? Is that an okay introduction?
That's excellent.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So the theme of our interview is, I would say, it's just the future and a hope and how that ties into a financial system, how that plays out interacting with other humans. Um, so I'd love if you would just maybe give us a quick update or like rundown of your background and maybe what you're doing now. And then we'll just kind of hop into maybe where you see Father taking things.
Yeah, sure. That's great. Okay, so my background, I come from an HR background. I worked for corporate America, a great company, and I honor working for the company that I did. I learned a lot. I worked with some incredibly smart people. And I also learned a lot about economics. And while I was there were things that Yahweh would show me or the Father would show me, and I would start to see some things, especially working with the tax department. I mean, who wants to work with those tax people, right? I do, because they're amazing. I'm grateful for tax people because they can really help us with some things. But anyway, typically people don't want to go into tax, but we need tax people. So when I was in corporate America and I worked with these tax people, there were things that I could see how they could just take, they could take their ideas and they could just split things apart and making some things work for the company. And it was amazing to watch how God would use these different personality types. You have your accountants, you have your tax people, you have your business development, and they're all different types of people, but they have to work together. And that to me was amazing to watch. I love seeing that. So that was my corporate America experience. Well, then when Yahweh was like, it's time for you to go. And I was like, wait, what? Really? It's time for me to go. Yes, you need leverage in heaven, Rose. And this is the one of the ways that you're going to get it. And I'm like, okay. Now, it did take me a couple of days to get fully on board with, with leaving my corporate America job. Okay, so I did. And then fast forward, it was my last day. I was turning in my final report of the things that I had been working on. And there were some crazy, amazing miracles that happened. I mean, I won't go into detail, but my boss came to me and she said, Rose, are you sure? Are you really sure you want to leave? Because this is crazy. And I was like, well, actually, what she said to me was, this is crazy, freaky, weird. When she was reading through my email update, that was the only word, that was her language for it. Crazy, freaky, weird. Are you sure you want to leave? And I was like, I gotta go. So anyway, so I left corporate America, and then I set out on a journey to try to figure out, what am I doing? What am I doing next? And I think that it's either you're going to be asked to go, or there's going to be forced change. Do you know what I mean by
Mm.
forced change?
Yep.
Yeah. And I think that we've gone through the last, couple of years, 3 years, there's been quite a few people that have had forced change. And I know it's a scary deal. I know it can be a scary thing, but just know that Yahweh's got his finger on this and it's all good. So anyway, so here I set out this time to figure out, okay, what's next? What am I doing next? Well, there were things that I was on this path to making some changes, and we have to learn how to sacrifice. I believe that we have to learn how to be, increase our risk tolerance, if you will. And so as we increase our risk tolerance, it becomes a sacrifice. There's things that we have to lay on the altar and we have to trade, right? We have to trade things on the altar. And when we do that, it takes us up to the next level. So, so that was kind of like an eye-opening experience for me. If I go back, I can see some other things that had happened that, caused me to be able to become more risk tolerant, if you will. Just really quick, let me just throw this in here. But interrupt me at any time if you think I'm like sharing too much. But so going back, before I stepped away from corporate America, I was on one of my trips to Israel, and I was coming back. I was by myself. I was coming back, and I walk up to the counter to check in, and the lady says to me, she says to me, ma'am, you've missed your flight. And I was like, wait, what? Well, my itinerary was wrong, and I literally missed my flight home. So I'm like, oh snap, what now? Okay, well, so I walk off to the side. I sit down to try to collect my thoughts because I was a little emotional, and because I'm by myself. But thank God I'm by myself, because you know what? I'm not sure I could have managed anybody else's emotions because I'm trying to manage mine, right? Okay, so I'm like, okay, I got to buy another ticket home. So I'm looking online, what's the best ticket to buy home, blah, blah, blah. So I finally purchased this ticket. And the reason, okay, so it's between Rome, Austria, or Moscow that I had to like route through. Well, the shortest amount of layover was at 26 hours through Moscow. So I'm like, bingo, I'm going that way. So I buy that ticket and I go back and I go to the Aeroflot counter and I'm like, checking my bag. And then the lady says to me, ma'am, you have to hurry. Your flight's leaving in 20 minutes. And so I'm like, oh gosh, okay. So I give her my bag. I do all of that. And then I go through security, and then I'm walking down the hall and I'm on my way to my gate. And all of a sudden I'm like, where's my purse? So I lose my purse. Long story short, I lose my purse. Anyway, fast forward, long story, I get to Moscow. And I'm just like, I'm a little bit of a mess, you guys, truth be told. And I'm like, what the heck? What am I doing here in Moscow? What's happening? And Yahweh speaks to me and he says to me, I just need you to speak forgiveness over the land. I'm like, okay, I got 26 hours. I can do that. So anyway, then, so I go through my process, nothing major. I mean, I'm just, anybody can do that, right? Okay. So then a couple hours later, I'm like, all right, so now what? What is really happening here? He speaks to me again and he says, I have a trading system that you know nothing of, but you're about to learn. I'm like, wow. Okay, what does that even mean? So anyway, I set that aside. And I mean, of course, I'm holding it, but I'm not, I don't know what to think of it. So fast forward, I get to JFK. I finally get to JFK. And I walk in and I'm walking through customs and I'm like, finally, that feeling. Can you imagine how that felt? And so then Yahweh speaks to me again, and he's like, no. I'm like, what now? No. You need to untether, break soul ties, disentangle, however you want to say that, with the United States and with money. And I'm like, what? Yes, Rose, I need you to be able to travel anywhere on the globe with $70 in your pocket. I'm like, wow. Now I'm a little bit in my comfort zone because I'm already back on, my home soil, right? So anyway, so I'm walking along, and then he speaks to me again, and he said, and oh, by the way, do the same thing with Israel and Germany. So pretty much I'm having to untangle from everything. Okay, so that happened. I come home, I'm different. I mean, how can you not let something like that change you, right? Okay,
Right.
so fast forward so many months, then the job thing, right? Okay, so all of that happened, I believe, to put me on a trajectory to come into a greater understanding of his systems and how he likes to see things traded in the system. Being in the world, but not of the world. How do we do that? And so you go back or I go back and go back to what you guys started with is, what does it look like in the future? How do things in our financial economic system, how does it look? So I'll stop there, and you guys say
It's
whatever.
probably a conversation for another day, probably off camera, but Kim and I both had a very similar experience in different ways, but
And in a different
very
country, but
yeah, very similar experience, very similar instructions.
Mhm.
So it's reassuring. I think it's cool to see that the synchronicity and the connection and the
Mhm.
similarity between those. So
Yeah.
well, I think it's amazing you said yes to that. And it's fascinating to me. You said early on that sometimes you feel like heaven gives you assignments that other people wouldn't take because they're more risk adverse. And you said sometimes you end up places and you're like, wait, how did I get to here? And I can imagine that father saying, hey, um, disentangle from the land you've lived in your life, like disentangle from that. I can imagine that being somewhere you're like, wait, how did this come about? But what I'm most curious about is you talked about leaving your corporate job and how some people um, come to a point where it's you're given an option to choose. Um, and I'm not going to say an option to choose to leave your corporate job because I'm not against people having corporate jobs.
Mhm.
Um, but maybe the option to just fully dive into what heaven has for you.
Mhm.
Um, because I think that maybe for you was the first step that unlocked like really stepping into your identity in what you were supposed to bring to this realm. Um, so I think I'm curious, was it totally blind, or have you had for a while this feeling that you're going to do something else? And if so, did you have any idea what it would be?
That's a great question. Yes, I was getting an inkling of some things because my landscape was changing. I was noticing the landscape changing with the company that I worked for, and just things around me was changing, and I was like, how do I still fit into this? Now, when I say how do I still fit into this, first of all, I had to become more familiar with me and who I am and who my identity is. And so as I was going through that process, there was this peeling away of stuff.
Mm,
And when you've had things for so long and you're comfortable with it, ugh, that's a little hard. It's a little tough to let go of some of those things that you're comfortable with. And so that to me is a trade as well. Looking back now, I can see where I was trading and offering some things up on the altar to sacrifice unto Yahweh and say, yes, here, take it, have it. And it's interesting that you said what you said, because I have this I have
A stone that says
a
yes.
stone that says yes. This is one of my favorite things. And when I struggle with saying yes, when I know I'm supposed to say yes, the stone comes out. So I thought it was very appropriate that you said that, Josh. But basically for me, it was really learning more. The more that I said yes to Yahweh, and even taking a risk, because there were times when I thought, am I making this up in my head? Do I really feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing? Okay, well, like even quitting my job, and I totally get it. I mean, we need to have people in the marketplace. We need to be in the marketplace developing things and bringing downloads, and into the earth. But I had to ask myself, wow, am I really going to do this? Is this really something that I'm supposed to do them, or I'm just making this up? But so I was thinking about the cost. We have to count the cost. We have to think about the cost. And, because mystics sometimes can just like get out there and do a thing and not really apply wisdom, right? I mean, we've kind of seen some of that. But so then I was thinking about, it's like, well, okay, well, I'm going to try it. And if not, I can always go get another job. I mean, I have some good skills. I can go get another job. But the fear, one of the things that I realized is that the fear of deception is so strong, so strong. And we have a tendency to not think that Yahweh, the Father God, is not big enough to be able to get us back on track to where we need to be. And so there's this fear of deception, but who's to say that we were already deceived and we're coming out of deception by becoming more risk tolerant? I mean, I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there for supposition, I guess. So, but for me, it was going on the path of learning who I am and how I'm supposed to operate in the kingdom based on, based on the personality type that Yahweh put in me, based on the meaning of my name, based on the meaning of my Hebrew name, based on my Torah portion, based on, I mean, I go through all of these things to line them up to understand better who I am and how I'm supposed to function in the earth. And then with that, then I'm going to, create my vision and go down that path and help and have that help be the riverbanks, if you will, in life and where I'm going. Sometimes it's going to flow softly, and other times it's going to be a little bit of a waterfall. But, it is what it is. But yeah, going back to your initial question about the inkling, or did I see it? Yes, I did start to see the landscape changing, and so I knew that I needed to start putting some pieces together for the future. So I started building the back office to my own business. And yeah, but then I had to figure out, okay, what's the business, So, but of course it's HR consulting, because that's what I know, that's what I do, and I'm people first. And so, yeah. Does that help? Did I answer your question?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's I love the conversation about where you've been. I would also like to talk about where you're going. So I know when you left that job, you said there was some inclination. You saw the landscape changing. Um, you've gone through this process with a loving father of disentangling from what is known so that you can pursue, I mean, it probably what felt like the unknown, but is probably just a actual return to where you came from and what you agreed to before you forgot about it. So, um, so I would like to just kind of know, like, so what does that look like now? Like, how many years removed are you from corporate America? What does life look like now? And what's your sense of where you think things are going?
Mhm. Yeah. So I left right before COVID hit.
Perfect.
Yes. So in some regard, I feel like I got ahead of the curve a little bit. And it wasn't shell shock for me. When it hit, it was like, oh, okay, here we go. And I think that yeah, I think that we should take a look at some of those things that have happened to us and that are happening to us, like individually, but also corporately, and think, okay, how can I squeeze the juice out of this? How can I get the nutrients out of this and take it and grow it? Because well, if okay, so if I'm going to use the word in Romans 8, it talks about, all things will work together for good for those that believe in him. Okay, so if that's true, if I believe that, then there's got to be something good about COVID, right? There's got to be something good about, those different things that happen to us. Like if we lose our job, or, if we, get into, a financial crisis, or those sorts of things. Okay, well, what is happening and how can I squeeze the nutrients out of this to spiral up to that next level, right? And so, um, yeah, so when I think about the future and some of the different things that I've, been focused on and working on, I've gone back also and looked at some of those visions that I've had, some of those things that people just innocently say to me that I know it sticks and I pay attention to. And then also, there's been some prophetic words that have been spoken, that sort of thing. So I've taken all of that and I've kind of like distilled it down. And one of the things that I've really paid attention to or saw was that being a benefactor, a beneficiary, and a treasury. And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, okay, well, there's a common denominator between those different things. And so looking at that, it kind of has helped frame up a vision as to where I need to go, or what are some of the things that I need to be working on paying attention to. So it's helping guide me down the path. And then looking at, some other things, that I shared earlier about the meaning of my name, the Torah portion, because I strongly believe in those different components, but it does come from my Jewish background though too. But anybody, Jew or Gentile, can tap into this technology for sure. So anyway, so with that, there's been some other things, other tools that I've looked at, like for instance, the Tohu Wabohu meditation. This that is a technology that uncorks some things. Now, there's some things that you go through. Well, let me just say this. When you go through this type of a meditation, it helps you have the observer effect. And what I mean by that is it helps you, yeah, Josh, you're shaking your head. Yes, like you know what I'm talking about.
I
So I
do.
want to hear what you think too. But it can cause you to watch how you respond to a thing or how you behave with the thing, and it brings up revelation for you to take a look at and like, oh my gosh, I would not have been able to recognize that in a million years. And so these different tools that I've come across and I've learned, and I believe the reason why I've come across these different tools is because of my seeking. In Proverbs 25:2, it talks about, searching out a matter, the glory of God to conceal a matter, but it's the glory, right? Am I messing this verse up?
No, the
It's the
glory
glory
of
of kings to seek out the matter. And when we're seeking out matters, there's going to be things that are going to come. And one of the other things too that I kept hearing after I left my job, and the fear would bubble up, like, oh my God, what did I do? And I kept hearing, serve another man's vision and I will take care of you. And so then it would go back down and then it would come back up. And I would serve another man's vision and I will take care of you. So it was really pretty much, I needed to be focused on, okay, what skills do I have and who do I need to serve?
Mm.
How do I function in the kingdom and who do I need to serve? Well, it didn't take long and Yahweh would drop people in front of me to serve. And so, and because of that, it was as if I was getting some greater tools to help me do what I'm supposed to do. Does that make sense?
It does. I have a question. Serve another man's vision and I will take care of you. Was that challenging to hear right after leaving corporate America, where you could argue you were serving another man's vision?
Yeah. Yeah, it was. That's a great question. It was. The only thing is that I really paid attention to the vision of the company that I was working for. Fabulous vision, loved it. Then it started to tweak and change. And I felt like, and maybe you guys have been in this situation too, where it doesn't matter whether it's at work or whether it's a organization that you belong to, and, understanding that vision. And it may be right for a period of time, but there may come a time. And in my situation, it was like, no, I'm calling you to a different vision. And so I was noticing how their vision was changing and my vision was becoming clearer. And so now it was time to like step away and do my own vision, or start stepping deeper into my own vision, because I did not want to cause division. That's their house. They built that company. The leaders put that vision in place. Who am I to come alongside and say, no, I'm going to operate this way? If I'm coming up under that vision, I need to align with it.
Mhm.
And so then it was time for me. I could see it was time for me to step away and, shift and move into a vision that aligned better with the vision that Yahweh had for me.
Yeah. I think that's a powerful point. We've talked a lot about our strong dislike of division, and how it tends to be people's first instinct when something seems to be counter to what I believe or what I'm called to, for me to want to separate from that.
Yeah.
And when in reality, it's not that one is right and one is wrong, but one of them has a certain form and function, and I was created with a different form and function. And so I loved what you said about, it isn't that you didn't like what they were doing, but you didn't want to create division by pushing your form and function into somewhere it wasn't meant to be.
Mhm.
I think it's just such a powerful thing to come into a realization that, man, this company or this group would be better if I put my skills in a different spot. And sometimes that's really challenging because you get in this comfort zone and you want to make it work. And but it's it is interesting because it it on the outside could look like division. It could
Mhm.
look like, hey, I'm stepping away from this. Kim and I both stepped away from corporate America. We both stepped away from traditional churches, and there's been a lot of times where that has felt or looked or sounded like division because
Mm.
we stepped away from being a part of that system. And
Yeah.
it wasn't ever about division, but it was about like really finding the home and where we're supposed to be connected in what we're doing. And it sometimes can be a tough situation, but I honor you for making that tough
Mhm.
choice and using your universal key rock to say, yes, open this door.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So you've kind of sparked another thing that I feel like I just want to share this really quick. And it could be a little controversial or scandalous. Um, okay,
Perfect.
so all right, so going back several years, there was a thing that I was working on, and you know how human trafficking has gripped our hearts, right? And so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna blah blah blah, and I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. And you know, Yahweh said to me, as he usually does, right? No, no. Now I'm starting to realize how many times I get told no. But anyway, so he was like, no, no. And I was like, what? No, no, Rose, back up off it. And I was like, why? This is horrible. This situation needs attention, you know, and all of that. And he said to me, mm-mm, you are ineffective. And I was like, what? You're ineffective. How am I ineffective? Rose, if you cannot love the predator, the perpetrator, you're ineffective. That person that's trafficking those human lives is my creation as well. And I love them too. And I'm like, oh my God, that is too big for me right now. That's too big for me. And so then he went on to tell me that if you step into doing this, you will put in a lot of work that's in vain and you will get burnt out. I don't want you burnt out. I want you to forgive. I want you to learn how to forgive. Don't pick up that borrowed offense from these people that are trafficked. Okay. All right. So I was like, got it. So I went and, you know, didn't move forward with what I thought was going to be my plan. So fast forward so many years into this situation that I just recently told you about. Now, don't hear what I'm not saying. But by leaving different things, and I was like, why did I have to do that, that, and that? And so as I was seeking to understand, Yahweh spoke to me and he said, no longer will I have you trafficked. And I was like, whoa, wow.
Mm.
When we don't leave a thing, or sometimes there's things that we leave and that people group can get really frustrated or upset and you know feel betrayed, you know, and all of that. But the thing is that they're trying to hold on to a resource. And one of the things too that one of my things that I like to say is love people and use things, not use people and love things. And so when he was showing me this, I had already gone through loving or trying to figure out how to love the predator, the perpetrator, all of that. So I was ready to hear this other thing about the human trafficking and no longer will I have you trafficked. Because the people that I can look back at and think, oh, I was being trafficked,
Yeah.
they didn't realize that they were trafficking me. They didn't realize that they were using human capital for their own gain. And so we have to be very careful because when it's time to go, we're not only helping ourselves, but we're helping that other person too. We're not being a commodity for that person to trade. That's probably really that's probably a really tough thing to say. And I hope that I hope that you guys hear my heart when I say that and don't be like pulling out your shotguns to go shoot some of those traffickers.
Yeah, no, we've talked about this a lot because both of us left our jobs with corporate America. And it wasn't that we didn't love the people. It wasn't that there was anything particularly wrong with it. Um, but we realized the way it was kind of explained maybe was a little bit softer than that. But it was like, are you using your time, your skills, and your resources to build somebody else's vision, or are you using them to build the vision that Father has given you. And it was kind of like an employee versus slave versus son type of a
Yeah.
conversation that we had with Father. And it was challenging because it wasn't that an employee was a bad thing, because then he had us partner with other people who had similar visions, and it was like,
Mhm.
"Oh, this kind of feels like employee." And it was
Mhm.
like, "No, it's different. It's coming from a different source. You're heading a different direction." And so it was, it's very similar, just kind of a realization that, hey, this some things have to change for you to be able to do what I've created you to do.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, and there's entrepreneurs and there's intrapreneurs, and so for me, I can function as a strong entrepreneur to come alongside an entrepreneur and co-labor with and collaborate with.
Mm,
And, I mean, just like Yahweh put Adam and Eve in the garden, that male counterpart, that female counterpart to procreate, to fill the earth. And, as we come together and, I serve another man's vision, me, the entrepreneur, serve the entrepreneur, we're still collaborating and working together to bring forth the kingdom. And, so yeah, I get it. And it's a challenge, and we shouldn't, not everybody's called to leave corporate America. I mean, we
mhm.
can't, not everybody's called to go into the four walls of the church. The church is in the marketplace too. I mean, you know what I mean? So,
Absolutely.
mhm.
Mhm.
Well, before we wrap up, I would love if you could cast a vision for the future that you see, and maybe in a few words share maybe what your part in landing that is.
Mm, yeah. Okay. Well, casting the vision. Okay, so if you haven't heard of Kirby D. Lanerall and the 5DP up, up, down, down, and then what got added to it was out, out. Okay, so as like, let's just even take the three of us. The three of us are going to go up together, get the blueprint, then we come down as our unique individual self, and then we go out, out into the kingdom. So in that process, we're learning more about who we are and how we function in the kingdom, right? And so then we have all these tools that we use, and one being, the tohu wabohu, the other being um, just the whole within that, within some of that teaching, there is the teaching of the justice and righteousness. And I kind of touched on that a little bit when I was talking about the human trafficking. So I think that it's really about making sure that we are righteous judges, that we can judge fairly, which means we have to judge ourselves first before we can then point the finger, before we have the power and the authority and the trust to be able to, judge a thing. Now, I just want to throw this out here and say I have seen some amazing miracles. Like I got, over $18,000 back from American Airlines. Okay, that's a little bit of a deal. I've had a digital miracle with over $10,000 dropped in my account. I mean, just crazy stuff. So there is, can I say it like this? There's money to be had out there. And it's just a matter of, breaking the code in the word and using that at a higher level to get where we need to go. So I think that it's really about going up, understanding better our place in the kingdom when we come down, and going out and learning how to be risk tolerant in the right way, counting the cost, like in Matthew, what is it? Well, I wrote down some notes on Matthew 20:25 and on, and then also Matthew 6:31 about seeking the kingdom. And so anyway, going back and utilizing some of those verses and thinking about how we need to function in the earth, but we get the vision from Yahweh in heaven. So we go up, we come down, and we go out in our unique individual way. So to me, I think that we have the solution for the challenges that are coming upon the earth. But we've got to get better, and we've got to learn more about how to not be afraid of deception. There we go. I don't know. Is there anything else you want me to add?
I think that's so good, Rose. And I appreciate you speaking boldly about it. Honestly, I know that's not always easy to say things that seem so countercultural, but I really do believe that we're in a season with Yahweh, with the Father, where he's opening these truths up to people. And it takes people being bold like you have been to say some of these hard truths, to open eyes and really get the shift going. You know what I mean? So I appreciate you. And I think I've learned a lot tonight from just stuff that you've shared. I didn't know a lot of our paths have been so similar. You've had a very, very similar process to what I've had, to what Josh and I have walked out together. You were certainly a bit before us. But I love seeing how he weaves us together this way. You know what I mean? You can always, if you actually stop to listen, you can always find a commonality, and I will hear him through you. And so I appreciate you being that voice tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. And I don't think that we can just listen to Christians. I think we need to listen to people that are agnostic, people that are atheist, people that are Muslim, Jews, Hindus, Buddhists. I don't care. I don't care, because they're all God's creation and they all carry a spirit. And there's some amazing ideas yet to drop in the earth. And so I'm excited about it. And I think that when anything, so let me just say, with Israel, anytime that Israel gets squeezed, something really good comes out. Like irrigation systems, cell phones, the technology hubs in Israel. Come on. So you know what? Squeeze away.
I love it. It's amazing. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's been an honor and a pleasure. And we look forward to having more conversations on and off camera with you.
Yeah, thanks, you guys. I so appreciate you guys and love you guys.
Thank you for listening. Join us every Monday and Thursday as we discuss trading on earth as it is in heaven. If you want to connect further, follow us on social media at market.mystics for Instagram and TikTok, and search for Market Mystics on YouTube and Facebook. If you still need more, follow the link on Facebook to book a coaching appointment. Until next time, see ya.